It's not just a question of learning your lines. What it is, the old-fashioned word for it was study. You go alone, you have no observer, no interlocutor, an unobserved, uninhibited, private study is the backbone of any fine actor or actress. It was like painting without using a brush. How can you? Stick it on with your fingers. I heard an actor say the other day he doesn't need words. I just thought, hang on, what have you said? That was a performance of one of the most difficult parts in the English language. Stanley Kowalski and Tennessee Williams, Streetcar Named Desire. You know, one of the great 20th century playwrights. Right. With this poetic, complex, curious dialogue. And Marlon had played that for 2 years. He'd done that performance thousands of times, not hundreds, thousands. So when he turned up to do it, of course it wasn't about words. He knew all that. He'd performed it. He performed it dozens of times. The same thing happened with the Moscow Arts Theatre when they came here. Oh dear, what's this method thing? They had been playing a Tsarist repertory from 1898 until 1923. They were still churning out the same old plays with the same old company. So what made it so spontaneous seeming, which is what we're supposed to do, and what made it so electrifying in its naturalness, was the fact that it was so completely rehearsed and so completely performed.
You have your breakfast at 9, you go into the living room at 10, you start with the first line, you say it 18 times, then you attach it to the second line and you say both of them 19 times. Stop at 1 o'clock and you have your lunch, and then you resume at 2, and by 4 o'clock your brain goes, and then you can have the rest of the day off. And you do that without the phone on, and every morning you review what you did yesterday. You do that bit that you're supposed to know before you start on the fresh line for today. You just sit there and you bang it out until such time as it seems to stick. So I know every single in walk in. There was in England there was a sort of taboo about that, which was actually just a way of, I think, of avoiding homework. You would become imprisoned by intonations, and it was therefore a discourtesy to your colleagues. It's nonsense. You never get imprisoned by intonations. It's nothing approaching a discourtesy to your colleagues. It's just not doing your homework. It's best to get. You can't rehearse with you can't. You know, as directors have said to me, you can't rehearse with a book in your hand. The book in your hand is to stop you, is to delay the moment when you have to act. Everybody wants to put off the moment where they have to act. And because I spent so many tortuous hours in rehearsal rooms, fearful of making the first real move, I figured out that I'd feel less terrible for less time. You get rid of the book and just go, all right, we'll make the first decision now. And then everything lightened up. Whereas, or you can put it off and put it off and put it off and just suffer for longer. Anyone can learn lines. Actors haven't got special brains or anything. Anyone in the world can learn any kind of lines. If you had to, you would do it. You just sit there long enough and you will know the lines. It's not the hard part. It appears to be the hard part. It's not. The hard part comes after you've learned the lines, in my view.
The hard work is toxic. Okay, don't do hard work then. Good luck, dummy. It's just not going to work for you. That's not going to pay out, because what's the metric of our society? It's results. There's two great myths in our society, right? There's one myth is talent and ideas, and there's another myth which is hard work. They're both bullshit, because the ideas are cheaper than table salt, right? There's everyone's got ideas. Every idea is about implementation. Every sports is a good analogy, right? So Michael Jordan, greatest of all time, right? There's no debate. He's the greatest. How much did he work? Fucking more than anyone else. How much natural talent did he have? More than anyone else. What if he hadn't worked? You never heard of him. He never would have made the team, let alone being the greatest, but wouldn't have even made the team if he hadn't trained. It's a good analogy for life of going, look, whatever talent you have, if you don't do the work as well, it's just a waste of potential. So I think it's the absolute fundamental. Now, hard work and drudgery are not the same thing, right? It's like there's a working smart and working hard, and there's a difference between the two. If you're working at something and it's like hard work alone won't do anything, you know, it's about what stream you're in. It's that thing of going, well, work as smart as you can, work at the thing that you're best at. I think school teaches us maybe the wrong lesson. School teaches us a lesson about mediocrity and being all-rounders, and yet we live in a world that does not reward all-rounders. Who gives a fuck about all-rounders? So find out what you've kind of got a natural, that edge thing. Find out what you have a natural ability for. What's the thing that you do best? And again, I would remind people, it's not the best in the world, just better than anything else you do. Lean into that. Like, I'm all for following your dreams if your dreams are what you're best at. And the opinions of family and friends don't count. And then it's a little bit, I suppose it's a bit tough love. It's that thing of going, look at what your inner critic says, okay? And it won't be wrong. Look at what your inner critic says about you. Walk back the cruelty, and you got to, okay, that's the reality. That's the starting point.
You're sort of set up and you're put into this system where I think that you're supposed to be a jack of all trades, and you're sort of conditioned to say, well, the casting director's there and say, well, can you juggle? And you're like, absolutely, I can juggle. Can you ski? Hell yeah, I'm your man. You're supposed to set yourself up as somebody that can, basically do anything that they want. And I remember sort of having that attitude for a while, and I didn't book a job for like a year. But the truth is, it was that year of like rejection where I finally said to I suppose I took a different attitude towards the audition process, and I started to get jobs after that. And I think it was really because I said to myself, I'm not dependent on this job. This isn't going to define me, and I started to sell myself less, prepare more for the roles, really investigate the characters as much as I could, and not feel like, my self-worth was dependent on whether I booked the job or not. And I think that's finally what clicked with me, and I realized that casting directors weren't always necessarily looking for the Broadway showman that could do whatever they wanted, but somebody that had I don't want to say a little edge to them, but a different attitude about the audition process. You focus more on the work, you focus more on the character rather than selling yourself constantly to these people.
Part of me knew I had listened to a voice of fear that changed my life. It changed my life. That I knew then that voice of fear was something that I must never listen to. Fear of that. I must go to what desperately frightens me. Desperately frightens me is the chance of failure, is the chance of not knowing, but not going to what is safe. Ultimately, you look at these things, you look at these paths and these journeys you go on, and I think it's up to you to find the value in them, because there is value in all of them, even those that you would call, I shouldn't have done that. I should have done that. I needed to do that. I did that. Ultimately, I learned to craft. I learned to hear my voice of what I really wanted to do. And finally, when I was given the opportunity to do the work, I really knew how to do it.
To learn the craft and to have that solid job week after week after week. But we did learn our craft. But of course, I came from the theater. I'd been in the theater 4 or 5 years, so I had some knowledge of acting. But I think it's sad today, because with the contract system, there was such continuity.
Right.
And that's why people got to know you, love you, and you became part of the family. They saw you year after year after year after year, and they bought properties for you, they bought plays for you. Very difficult today to get scripts.
Right.
I have never liked what I have done. Every time I have finished a film in all these years, I say, now let's make it. Now I know what I'm doing. Because that's the worst of motion pictures. The first day you've got to play that character, because that first day will be shown just as much as your last day. Right. That is very difficult, as opposed to the theater where you rehearse.
I would say be on a set as much as you can. Being on sets and watching different people. Once you understand how these things are made and watch people fail and succeed and why certain takes work or certain choices work, I think you just learn from watching other people physically make something, or physically make it yourself, or grab an iPhone and make short films with your iPhone. It's just constantly making stuff and being around people making stuff was what I've learned the most from. I can watch a movie that I did like 2 or 3 years ago and I'll go, oh, that was terrible. Like, why did I do that? Or why did I make that decision in that scene? My whole ambition as an actor is to always be the least talented actor in the room and try and just, watch people who are better than me and try and pick up things.
I was just tired. I was just, you know, in my own self-involved way, I was just tired. And I knew that I had all this amazing good fortune and all these things that had happened, and I wasn't really enjoying anything. And you know, it's not a sad story, it's that old thing, you know, smallest violin in the world shouldn't play for me, but I kind of had too much. I was given too much and I didn't know the worth of anything. And even though I worked as hard as I could, it just, again, happened so fast. So I remember going, why am I doing this? Yes, it's living, and I'm following this train that has left the station and I'm on it, and there's no getting off it until I choose to, and that would be a very dramatic thing. But I was like, I could walk away. I could go home. I could open up a coffee shop or a pub. I remember thinking I could do that. I could bore people with stories, you know, about my days in Tinseltown. And then I stepped away for a while and just did some, a little bit of soul search. I was just thinking about whether I wanted to, genuinely, whether I was kind of like, and I had to remember why I had to cast my mind back to the first acting class I did when I was 16 or 17. And why I did that, and more importantly, why I went back for the second class. And I remembered how much fun it was, and what a sweet challenge I found it to be, and what a kind of an opportunity for exploration of my own beliefs and also the lives of others. I mean, I think one of the best things, if you get the chance to work as an actor, or even if you're not working, if you decide to, because you don't have to be employed to be an actor, you just act on your own. It's a bit tragic, but you can, and look at scripts or look at stories, and that's what it is. You're trying to imagine yourself, put yourself in the shoes of others, and you know what it might be like to walk a mile in another man's shoes. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about it, potentially, is that you do get to consider other people's socioeconomic backgrounds and other people's way of living and other people's philosophies and beliefs, and they might be in conflict with yours, but you do get to kind of exercise that curiosity. So I remember thinking they were the kind of things that I could feel inside me when I did the first class when I was 17 or 18 in Dublin, and I kind of got reconnected with that way of being, you know.
If you happen to be very lucky when you're 10 years old, you'll have people in your life who tell you the world is anything you want it to be, and you'll believe them. And those people will never put limits on your abilities. In return, no matter the circumstances, you always try your best and you never give up, because that's what you do when you're chasing your dream. If you're lucky, you'll have family, teammates, coaches, mentors, and trainers along the way to help you when you lose faith in yourself. And they'll give you the strength to carry on. If you're lucky, you may get picked last. You may ride the bench, and many times the team may move on without you. And you come to recognize that in return, you're given the chance to earn the greatest edge of all, and one that can never be taken away. Will, heart. So to anyone who feels left out or is afraid of trying their best for fear of failure, you're not alone. The magic you're looking for is in the will of trying and not giving up. The love of your dream is in your heart. One day you'll look back on your life and appreciate the struggle and have nothing but gratitude for everything that happened along the way. To anyone who's struggling early in the morning or late at night in pursuit of your dream, struggles that many will never see, and to any leaders out there who believe in someone who doesn't yet believe in themselves, keep going, because will always finds a way.